Take your ghetto trash out of my school. Black girl charity cases belong in the dumpster.
The cafeteria froze.
User.
Ashley Caldwell, 14, pharmaceutical heiress, yanked the backpack open and tipped it into the trash can. Out spilled textbooks, a letter reading, "My brave girl," and a photograph of a black woman in judicial robes. Brianna Turner, 12, the only black child in 7th grade, dropped to her knees and dug through coffee grounds to save her mother's photograph. 24 white students watched. The guard studied the floor.
She's literally crawling in the trash.
What Ashley didn't know, what her billionaire father didn't know, was that the woman in that photo was a U.S. federal judge. In 3 hours, she would sign the ruling that destroyed the Caldwells forever. Have you ever watched the rich humiliate a black child and prayed the universe was watching? Yeah, I sat with that image for a minute too. A 12-year-old kid, elbow deep in a middle school trash can, trying to rescue her mom's face from the coffee grounds. I'm Kane Uncovers. I dig up the stories the rich folks hoped would stay buried. And buddy, this one? 3 hours. That's all the universe needed. Before we drop back into that cafeteria, you gotta meet the 2 girls standing over that trash can. Because this isn't just a rich kid bullying a poor kid. This is a collision. Brianna Turner was 12 years and 4 months old the day she walked through the iron gates of Sterling Heights Academy for the first time. She was wearing a navy blazer her mother had ironed twice that morning. Her shoes were from a consignment shop on 63rd Street. Her backpack, tan leather, Coach, a birthday gift, was the only thing on her body that had not been bought secondhand. Inside the clasp, engraved in tiny letters, B.T. Her mother had saved 6 months for that bag. Sterling Heights sat on 22 acres north of Chicago. Iron gates, ivy trimmed by the same company for 71 years. Tuition? $42,000 a year. Brianna paid $0. Her scholarship, the Founders Legacy Award, was one of 3 given each year to the top-scoring black students in the Chicago public school system. It covered tuition, books, uniforms, lunches, and a small monthly stipend for supplies. It renewed each year on one condition: an A- average and, in the contract's exact words, conduct consistent with the values of the institution. Translation: don't give them a reason. Brianna didn't. 3 afternoons a week, she volunteered in the after-school tutoring program, helping 3rd graders sound out words. Nobody else in her grade signed up. She did it for 2 reasons. It looked good on the scholarship renewal form, and it let her stay until 5 when her mother swung by on the way home from the courthouse. At lunch, she sat alone. When kids asked where she was from, she'd say, "Southside," and watch their faces do a little math and then politely look away. She didn't talk about her mom. "My mom's a lawyer," she'd say if somebody pushed. She never said which kind. She never said where. The photograph, now soaking in coffee grounds beside a half-eaten chicken wrap, that one wasn't for show and tell. That was private. That was hers. The woman in that picture wore black robes and a small, tight smile. She had been sworn into the federal bench 3 years earlier. She had raised Brianna alone since Brianna was 6, the year Brianna's father, a history teacher named Daniel, dropped dead of a heart attack in the middle of a Saturday softball game. Valerie Turner made coffee the next morning, packed her daughter's lunch, drove her to school, sat in the school parking lot, cried for exactly 4 minutes, wiped her face, and went to work. She had been making coffee and winning ever since. Now meet the other girl. Ashley Caldwell pulled up to Sterling Heights Academy in a white Range Rover. She was 5 years old. The moving truck came 2 days later because the kindergarten classroom her parents had donated couldn't be unveiled until she was officially enrolled. She was now 14, in her 9th year at the school. She'd been there longer than most of her teachers. A library wing on the east side of campus, 3 stories, marble lobby, had the Caldwell name in brass letters above the door, 3 inches tall. Ashley liked to walk past it on the way to homeroom. Sometimes she tapped the letters with one lacquered fingernail. Hi, Grandpa. Her father was Richard Caldwell, CEO, Caldwell Pharmaceutical Holdings. Net worth, $1.8 billion. The company's flagship product was a painkiller called Veridol X. If you've ever been to a pharmacy, you've seen the commercial. Ashley was blonde, tall for her grade. She was cruel in the casual way of children who have never, in their lives, been told no by anybody whose opinion mattered. She was also, and this is important, a mediocre student, B- average. Had been caught once copying another girl's essay word for word. The incident was quietly erased from her file after her dad made a phone call. And then, in September of Ashley's 8th grade year, she met Brianna Turner, civics class. Tuesdays and Thursdays, 10 a.m., Pritchard Hall, room 204. Mrs. Eleanor Brooks, 22 years teaching, reading glasses on a chain, ran that classroom like a grandmaster. You came ready, or you got cooked. Ashley took the third row seat. The light was better there. Brianna took the back corner. She liked seeing the whole room. Third Tuesday of the semester. Mrs. Brooks asks the class, "What do you know about Brown versus Board of Education?" She called Ashley first. Ashley gave a 45-second answer, half right, full confidence. Something about schools and fairness and Martin Luther King, who actually had nothing to do with the case. Mrs. Brooks nodded politely. Then she turned her head. "Miss Turner." Brianna set down her pencil. She didn't stand. She spoke for 45 seconds without notes. She explained what Plessy versus Ferguson ruled in 1896. Separate but equal. She explained why it was wrong. She walked the room through Thurgood Marshall's real strategy, building his case not on emotion but on evidence, on quiet studies showing how segregated classrooms damaged black children's sense of self. She finished with this line. The 1954 ruling didn't end segregation, it made it illegal. Those are two different things. Ending it is a project that isn't finished yet. Mrs. Brooks did the thing she did maybe twice a year. She smiled. Ashley Caldwell stopped taking notes, and something quiet and toxic started growing in that third row seat. The eye rolls first. Then the whispered jokes to Courtney, always loud enough for Brianna to hear, never loud enough for Mrs. Brooks to catch. The laugh, pitched just so, whenever Brianna got called on. Small stuff. The kind of stuff that, if you described it to any adult in that building, would get you, "Are you sure, honey? Isn't that a bit of a stretch?" Brianna didn't describe it. She went to class. She answered the questions. She tutored the third graders. Every night at 6:30, her mom came home and they ate dinner at the little kitchen table on 71st Street. Every night her mom asked, "How's it going, baby?" Every night Brianna said, "It's going." Then, early October, her mom canceled their Sunday movie night, third weekend in a row. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. They just handed me a major case. It's going to eat the next 6 months. "What kind of case?" "A beat. A big one, baby. Lots of people hurt. Big company. I can't talk about it." "Okay, Mom. Keep your head down. Keep your heart up. Love you." Brianna said love you back, finished her dinner, went back to studying. She didn't know the name of her mom's case. She didn't know the name of the company. And 160 miles across Chicago, in a glass penthouse on the 41st floor of the Caldwell Tower, Richard Caldwell was reading the same case file and laughing. Tuesday, October 22nd, 3:14 p.m. The Sterling Heights Academy Commons. Sunlit. Hardwood floors. That mix of cafeteria and lounge where the 7th and 8th graders killed their free period before the buses came. Brianna was at the corner table, history notes fanned out, highlighter cap between her teeth. She had 11 minutes before tutoring. She was reviewing a reconstruction essay for the third time, because Mrs. Brooks would ask. Because Brianna had decided, somewhere along the way, that she was never going to be the kid who wasn't ready. Ashley Caldwell walked past, turned, came back. 16-ounce iced coffee in one hand, 3 friends trailing behind her like backup dancers, Courtney, Madeline Ashford, and a boy whose last name owned 3 floors of a building in Evanston. Oh, sorry, didn't see you there. Ashley's hip bumped the table. The cup tipped. Ice and milk ran across the notes. The top page, 3 afternoons of careful handwriting, went translucent. God, what a mess, Ashley laughed. You should really watch where you're sitting. Brianna didn't look up. She lifted the wet pages, set them on her open backpack to drain. She was still wearing her hospital quiet face, the one she'd trained since October 1st. Nice bag, Ashley said. Brianna looked up. I said nice bag. That's real leather. Coach, right? Yes. Where'd you get it? I'm asking because, financially curious. It was a gift. From who? 'Cause there was that whole email to parents about lockers getting broken into last week, and I just want to make sure. From my mother. Courtney snorted. Oh, her mother. What happened next took under 45 seconds. Ashley leaned down, hooked 2 fingers through the top strap, lifted the backpack off the table. Hey, Brianna stood. Relax, I just want to check the tag. Already walking. If it's stolen, you want to know, right? Brianna followed. 6 other students at nearby tables watched. Not one of them stood up. Ashley stopped in the open space between the cafeteria counter and the big brushed steel trash can. She flicked the zipper of the backpack all the way open. Let's see what a scholarship kid carries around. She tilted the bag. Out they came. 3 textbooks, 2 binders, a school-issued Chromebook in a sleeve, a pencil case, a cloth wallet, a paperback of Brown Girl Dreaming, a water bottle, a granola bar, a folded, handwritten letter on pale blue stationery, and a small wood-framed photograph. The glass cracked when it hit the tile. Ashley bent down, picked up the photo, turned it so her friends could see. A black woman, judicial robes, a U.S. flag behind her, the federal seal just visible in the upper corner. Is this like the lady who cleans your apartment? Courtney covered her mouth. Ashley's eyes slid over to the letter. She picked it up with 2 fingers like it was contagious. She read in a sing-song voice, My brave girl, remember where you came from. Remember where you're going. Her friends cracked up. Brianna's hand started shaking. Give it back. In a minute. Then Ashley turned, walked 6 steps, lifted the lid of the trash can, and she said it. Take your ghetto trash out of my school, black girl. Charity cases belong in the dumpster. She dropped the photograph, the letter. Then she walked back, grabbed the rest. Textbooks, Chromebook, wallet, water bottle, Brown Girl Dreaming, and tipped it all in. She tossed the empty backpack on top. Oops, she said, loud enough for the whole commons. Her natural habitat. Officer Grant Davidson was standing 30 feet away, uniform, radio on his shoulder, paid to keep the kids safe. His eyes met Brianna's, for half a second. Then he looked at the Caldwell name above the library across the quad. Then he looked at his boots. And Brianna Turner, 12 years old, only black kid in 7th grade, dropped to her knees, both hands into the trash can, digging through coffee grounds and mayonnaise and the corner of somebody's turkey sandwich, feeling for the frame, finding it, pulling her mother's face out of the garbage before the wet napkins could eat it. Someone in the lunch line said, "Oh my God!" Nobody moved to help. She stood up, coffee on her sleeves. She held the cracked photograph against her chest. She walked out of the commons without looking back. She walked past the security guard. He didn't meet her eye a second time. She walked past the Caldwell Library wing, those 3-inch brass letters catching the October sun. She walked all the way to the girls' bathroom in Pritchard Hall, locked herself in the farthest stall, sat on the tile floor with her mother's coffee-soaked photograph pressed against her navy blazer. She did not cry. Not there. Not yet. And somewhere behind her, Ashley Caldwell started filming. Here's where most stories like this one end. Rich girl wins. Poor girl cries in her bedroom. Maybe a teacher says something kind. Nothing changes. The library stays named Caldwell. The scholarship kid learns to shut up and be grateful. That is how it ends, every single time. Except this time. Wednesday morning, 9:32 a.m. Brianna's mom was walking into chambers when her phone rang. Sterling Heights Academy front office. A conduct complaint had been filed against Brianna by Ashley Caldwell. The complaint said Brianna had verbally harassed Ashley in the Commons, that she had physically intimidated Ashley by advancing aggressively over a question about a handbag. Ashley said she had felt unsafe. 3 students had submitted witness statements backing Ashley up. Courtney, the Evanston boy, and Madeline Ashford. Valerie Turner listened, thanked the front office, hung up. She stood in the hallway outside her chambers for about 9 seconds, looking at nothing. Then she walked inside and closed the door. That night, at the kitchen table, Brianna read the complaint 3 times. Then she pulled a blank notebook out of her backpack. She wrote at the top, Log, October 22nd, 2:58 p.m. to present. And she started writing down every single thing, every word, every look, every name she could remember. She was doing what her mom had taught her at the age of 8. When they start lying, you start writing. Thursday. By noon, an 11-second video was circulating on the Sterling Heights parent app. It showed Brianna standing up, taking a step toward Ashley. That was it. It cut before Ashley grabbed the bag. It cut before the trash can. The caption read, Scholarship girl loses it on Ashley. Yikes. 4,000 views by dinner. By 9 p.m., Brianna's homeroom teacher had emailed her mom. Hi, Mrs. Turner. Just wanting to check in. Is Brianna doing okay at home? Anything going on we should know about? That careful voice adults use when they have already decided. Brianna saw the email over her mom's shoulder at the kitchen table. She didn't say anything. She went upstairs. She shut the bedroom door. 20 minutes later, Valerie Turner came up and sat on the carpet outside that closed door. She didn't knock. She didn't say, let me in. She just sat there. For an hour and a half. Brianna knew she was there the whole time. It was the first hour of the worst week of her life, where she felt, absolutely, that she was not alone. Friday. The scholarship office called Valerie at 2 p.m. Mrs. Delacroix, the coordinator. Nice lady. Wouldn't meet her eyes. The founder's legacy has a character clause, Mrs. Turner. I'm afraid it's been flagged for review. Reviewed by whom? The scholarship committee, pending the outcome of the conduct complaint. The complaint is false. I don't get to decide that. I'm just letting you know. I'm so sorry, Your Honor. Valerie walked her daughter back to the car in silence. Parking lot. October wind. The kind of cold that gets inside your coat. Mama. Yeah, baby. Am I going to lose the scholarship? Valerie Turner knelt down. Right there, in the parking lot, in her charcoal suit and her rimless glasses, on gravel that got into the knees of her wool slacks. She put both hands on her 12-year-old daughter's shoulders. Brianna, listen to me. There's always going to be another school. There will never be another you. You hear me? Yes, Mama. Good. Let's go home. I'm making gumbo. Monday. A letter showed up in Brianna's locker. Sterling Heights Academy letterhead. Headmaster Harrison Whitaker. Disciplinary hearing. Friday, 2:30 p.m. Office of Student Affairs. 1 parent advisor permitted, who may not act in an attorney capacity. An hour later, a second letter. A photocopy. Slipped in by somebody Brianna never identified. It was a letter from Richard Caldwell, CEO, Caldwell Pharmaceutical Holdings, addressed to the Board of Trustees of Sterling Heights Academy, dated the previous Friday. 3 sentences long. It said the Caldwell Family Foundation was actively reviewing its 5-year commitment to the school in light of recent and deeply troubling incidents involving student safety. The dollar amount referenced in that paragraph was $4,500,000. Brianna took the photocopy home, placed it on the kitchen table. Her mom read it standing up, still in her coat. Nothing. For almost a minute. Then, baby. Yes, Mama. Anything I'm about to say gonna surprise you? No, Mama. Good. Because I'm not going to tell you anything you don't already know. You keep the log. You say nothing on camera. You say nothing to any administrator without me in the room. You show up to that hearing Friday in the navy cardigan. You look every single one of them in the eye, and you do not cry in front of them. We clear? Yes, Mama. I can't be with you Friday morning. I got a hearing of my own. Big one. Mama, what's your case? Valerie Turner looked at her daughter for a long moment. She didn't say a name. She just said, "The universe has a way of balancing the scales, baby. You keep your integrity clean. Everything you're going through right now, it's being witnessed. You understand what I'm telling you?" I think so. Not yet, you don't. You will. Tuesday. Olivia Bennett caught up with Brianna at the bus stop after school. Olivia was a 7th grader. Pale, red-haired, the only other scholarship kid in the grade. Her dad drove a delivery truck out of Rockford. She was carrying her dad's old laptop in a denim sleeve. I pulled the whole video. Brianna stared. Carson Hollis? 8th grader who posted that clip? His brother's in my coding club. He uploaded the edited version off school Wi-Fi and forgot to scrub the metadata. I asked Mr. Harris in IT. The original file on the school server is 22 seconds longer than what Carson posted. She set the laptop down. They watched it together, huddled under Olivia's raincoat. Everything. The iced coffee, the zipper, the photograph hitting the floor, the letter being read out loud, the trash can, the word dumpster, and the security guard, standing 30 feet away, doing nothing. Brianna exhaled. First full breath in 5 days. Save it in 3 places. Already did. Email, thumb drive, my dad's backup. Olivia. Yeah? Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Thank me Friday at 3. Wednesday. Mrs. Brooks stopped Brianna after civics. Miss Turner, hall, now. Brianna followed. Mrs. Brooks's face wasn't readable. I've been informed of your hearing Friday. I've also been informed that I am, quote, not expected to submit a character statement on your behalf. I understand. I didn't ask whether I could. I'm telling you I have. She pulled a sealed envelope out of her cardigan pocket. 4 pages, single-spaced. Every cold call, every grade, every margin note I've put on every paper of yours since September. Copies to the headmaster, the scholarship committee, the assistant head of middle school, and every member of the board of trustees. I've also reminded the board, in a separate letter, to kindly reread Section 4 of their own faculty ethics code. The section that explicitly requires character testimony when a student's academic standing is under review. She gave Brianna a thin, dry smile. I suggest they read it before Friday. Mrs. Brooks, Miss Turner, I've taught 7th grade civics in this building for 22 years. In 22 years, I have had exactly 3 7th graders read Supreme Court dissents in their free time. 2 are now federal judges. The 3rd one is me. She turned, walked back into her classroom. Thursday morning, somebody slid a note into Brianna's locker before homeroom. No name. Block printed in pencil. Torn from a spiral notebook. I was at the next table on October 22nd. I saw everything. I froze. I'm ashamed. I wrote a statement and gave it to the headmaster's office this morning. I don't know if it helps. I'm sorry it took me 11 days. Brianna read it 3 times. She folded it, slipped it into the inside pocket of her backpack. Someone had finally spoken. Thursday night, 11:40 p.m. Valerie Turner came into her daughter's room, sat on the edge of the bed. Baby, tomorrow morning I'm making a ruling a lot of powerful people don't want me to make. Tomorrow afternoon I'll be at your hearing. Navy cardigan. I love you. Go to sleep. Brianna didn't sleep. She lay on her back, looked at the photograph of her mother on the nightstand. New frame, new glass. Bought at the corner drugstore with her stipend money. And she thought about the word witnessed. What did her mom mean? She didn't know yet. She was about to. At 2:30 p.m. on Friday, 2 things would happen in the city of Chicago that, until that moment, had nothing to do with each other. In the Office of Student Affairs on the second floor of Sterling Heights Academy, a 12-year-old scholarship student would walk into a disciplinary hearing. And 3 miles south, in courtroom 1905 of the Everett M. Dirksen United States Courthouse, a federal judge named Valerie Turner would sign a ruling that cost the Caldwell family $680 million. Neither hearing would end the way anybody in either room thought it was going to end. I got to stop here for a second. Because when I got to that line, everything you're going through is being witnessed, I put the page down. That's a mom's line, not a judge's line. She already knew. She knew 3 hours before her daughter did that these two cases shared the same last name, and she didn't tell her kid. She let her fight the hearing anyway, on her own integrity, not her mom's resume. That's a whole parenting class right there, folks. That's the whole reason this story matters. 9:43 a.m., Friday. Courtroom 1905, Dirksen Federal Courthouse, Chicago. The Caldwell legal team took up half of counsel's table, flew in from New York the night before. Lead attorney, Graham Whitfield, silver hair, won a Supreme Court case 3 years back, $2,000 an hour, told Richard Caldwell personally, 2 nights earlier, that the case would not survive the week. The lawsuit was titled In Re Caldwell Pharmaceutical Holdings, Inc., Products Liability Litigation. 1,183 plaintiffs. The allegation, in plain English, the company had known for 6 years that their blockbuster painkiller, Veridol X, caused catastrophic liver failure in patients with a common gene variant. They had hidden the data, buried the studies, paid off the researchers, and in those 6 years, they had reported record profits. And the CEO had given a commencement speech at his alma mater titled Ethics as Competitive Advantage. You can't make this up. Richard Caldwell sat in the front row. Charcoal suit, sterling silver cufflinks with his initials. Relaxed. Across from him, the plaintiff's lead counsel. Her name was Sarah Mitchell, small firm out of Milwaukee. 1 associate, 1 paralegal. A 3-ring binder she'd carried on the train. She looked nervous. At 9:58 a.m., the door in the back wall opened. All rise. The United States District Court for the Northern District of Illinois is now in session. The Honorable Valerie A. Turner presiding. Judge Turner walked to the bench. She was 44 years old, rimless glasses, small gold chain, a Christmas gift from her daughter. She set down her binder. She looked at the room. Be seated. She looked at Graham Whitfield. She looked at Sarah Mitchell. She looked at Richard Caldwell. 1 second. No expression at all. It was the smallest look anyone in that room had ever seen a federal judge give a billionaire. And it was the entire ballgame. I have read the motion to dismiss. I have read the plaintiff's response. I have read the 3 amicus briefs and the Department of Justice statement of interest filed Tuesday. I am prepared to rule. Graham Whitfield's pen stopped moving. Judges don't rule from the bench on a motion of this size. You take it under advisement. You issue a written opinion in 8 weeks. A bench ruling on a motion like this is not a ruling. It's a statement. The motion to dismiss is denied. I will issue the written opinion this afternoon. For the record, and for the benefit of counsel preparing the appeal I assume is already drafted, the operative language will be as follows. She opened the binder. Courtroom 1905 had 3-story windows and a walnut bench that had absorbed every ruling ever handed down in it. Her voice did not rise. It did not have to. The court finds that the plaintiffs have pleaded with particularity facts which, if proven true, would establish that the defendant knowingly and systematically concealed from the Food and Drug Administration, from prescribing physicians, and from the consuming public material safety data regarding the hepatic toxicity of Veridol X. The court further finds that these allegations would constitute fraud on the agency under the standard articulated by the Seventh Circuit. The defendant's motion for a protective order covering internal communications between its chief medical officer and chief executive officer is denied in its entirety. Richard Caldwell's face went gray. The parties will proceed to discovery. Class certification motion no later than February. She closed the binder. We are adjourned. Richard Caldwell did not move for 30 seconds. His lead attorney leaned over and whispered something. Richard nodded, slowly. By the time he reached the courthouse steps, Reuters had the story. By the time his driver pulled to the curb, Caldwell Pharmaceutical stock was down 11%. By the time he tried to get to his daughter's disciplinary hearing at Sterling Heights Academy, he was stuck in a wall of traffic on the Kennedy Expressway, and his phone was ringing with a call that would end his career. 2:30 p.m. Office of Student Affairs, Sterling Heights Academy. Headmaster Harrison Whitaker sat at the head of a long mahogany table. To his right, Director of Student Conduct. To his left, Dean of Middle School Students. At the far end, Ashley Caldwell, cream cashmere sweater. Next to her, her mother, Margaret Caldwell, sent because her husband was delayed in court. Pearls, hands folded. Brianna Turner sat alone on the long side of the table. The chair was too big. Her feet didn't quite reach the floor. She was wearing the navy cardigan her mom had laid out. In front of her, 3 items: a notebook, a sealed envelope from Mrs. Brooks, and the small wood-framed photograph of her mother in judicial robes. New glass. The crack still showed underneath. Out in the hallway, Olivia Bennett, sitting on a bench holding a laptop. Whitaker cleared his throat. We're here today to review a complaint filed by Miss Caldwell. Miss Turner, you've been offered the opportunity to respond. We'll begin with a summary of the allegations. The Director of Student Conduct read them. 4 minutes. Ashley nodded along. Miss Turner, your response? Brianna set her pencil down. She was 12. She was very small in that chair. When she spoke, her voice was steady. Before I respond, Headmaster Whitaker, my parent advisor isn't here yet. She's running about 10 minutes late from another engagement. Under Section 12 of the Student Conduct Code, I'm entitled to 1 parent or guardian present. I respectfully request a 10-minute recess. Margaret Caldwell sighed audibly. Is this really necessary? My daughter has... Mrs. Caldwell. Brianna's voice was quiet. Section 12. She will be here. Headmaster Whitaker checked his watch. He looked across the table at the 12-year-old black child in the navy cardigan. Something moved in his face. Call it unease. 10 minutes, not one more. They sat in silence. 9 minutes in, the door opened. A black woman walked in, 5'6", charcoal suit, rimless glasses, hair pulled back in a low twist. She carried a slim leather briefcase. She did not look rushed. My apologies for the delay. Federal court ran long. Headmaster Whitaker stood up, on reflex. Margaret Caldwell did not. Yet. The woman set her briefcase down next to her daughter's chair. She rested one hand lightly on the back of Brianna's neck, the small, steadying touch of a mother who'd been waiting 11 days to do exactly that. She did not sit yet. She turned to the room. Good afternoon. My name is Valerie Turner. I'm Brianna's mother. I'll be serving as her parent advisor today, under Section 12. For the record, because I understand this school has a disclosure policy regarding the professional capacities of adults present at student hearings. I should let you know that I currently serve as a United States District Judge for the Northern District of Illinois. I am not here today in that capacity. I'm here as a mother. She sat. The room went absolutely still. Margaret Caldwell's face began to drain of color in real time. Started at her forehead, moved down. Her hand, the one with the 3-carat diamond, rose slowly to her collarbone and stopped there. Ashley looked at her mother, then at Judge Turner. Then, for the first time in the entire hearing, she looked at Brianna. You could see the math happening behind her eyes. You could see her realizing. 12 years old, scholarship kid, the only black child in 7th grade, and her mom was a federal judge. Her mom was the federal judge on Daddy's case. Ashley's face went through 3 expressions in 5 seconds. Confusion, recognition, and then a color somewhere between chalk and paper. Terror. Judge Turner opened her briefcase. I understand there's a video in evidence. Before we discuss it, I'd like to submit the complete, unedited version, along with a certified chain of custody affidavit from the school's own IT office, confirming that the original file on the school server is 22 seconds longer than the version that was distributed. My daughter's friend, Miss Bennett, is in the hallway with the file. She pulled out a second folder. I'd also like to submit a character statement from Mrs. Eleanor Brooks, and a copy of the letter Mr. Richard Caldwell sent to the Board of Trustees on October 25th, the existence of which I became aware of a week ago through channels I'm professionally obligated to disclose if asked. A third folder. And this is the last one, Headmaster Whitaker. 20 minutes ago, by courier, I received a letter from the offices of Whitfield, Brandt, and Klein, withdrawing, on behalf of their client, any financial commitment that client may have suggested was contingent on the outcome of this hearing. They sent it to me personally. I suspect they understood what this hearing actually was. She set the 3 folders down in a neat stack. The sound they made against the polished mahogany was small, and somehow the loudest thing in the room. Now, shall we watch the video? Headmaster Whitaker's mouth opened. No sound came out. He looked, for one unguarded second, like a man who'd just realized he'd spent 26 years measuring his career in the wrong currency. Margaret Caldwell began to cry, silently, into her pearls. A single tear rolled down onto the 3-carat diamond and sat there for a moment like a second smaller stone. They watched the video, all 22 extra seconds of it. Ashley bumping the table, Ashley unzipping the backpack, Ashley tipping out the contents, Ashley reading the letter out loud in that sing-song voice, Ashley dropping the photograph into the trash. And that line, the one about the ghetto and the dumpster and the black girl. Margaret Caldwell flinched, physically, the first time she heard her daughter's voice say it. And then, the part Ashley had never noticed, because she was laughing too hard, Brianna dropping to her knees, both hands into the trash, digging through coffee grounds to rescue a photograph of her mother. 22 seconds of a 12-year-old black child on her knees. When the screen went dark, Headmaster Whitaker's voice was hoarse. Miss Caldwell, do you have a response? Ashley opened her mouth, closed it. Miss Caldwell, a response. I didn't... It was a joke. It was a joke. Judge Valerie Turner's voice was calm, even, unhurried. She let the words sit in the room, the way a surgeon lets an instrument sit on a tray before picking it up. A joke is something funny. What I just watched is not a joke. It's a test. You failed it. The people in that cafeteria failed it. The officer standing 30 feet away failed it. My 12-year-old daughter did not fail it. That is the only fact in this room today that matters to me. She turned back to Ashley. Young woman, I want you to understand something. I'm going to formally recuse myself from the case involving your father's company. The canons don't strictly require recusal on the basis of a separate matter involving your conduct toward my daughter. But the appearance of impartiality is worth more to me than any ruling. A successor judge will be assigned this afternoon. A pause. The ruling I issued this morning, however, was made before I knew any of this. That ruling is final. That ruling stands. She turned to Headmaster Whitaker. Headmaster, I am not asking you to discipline Miss Caldwell. That's your job, not mine. I'm asking you one question. I'm asking as a parent, as a taxpayer, as a graduate of Chicago Public Schools, which is where the state of Illinois educated the woman now sitting across from you. She leaned forward, just an inch. Why, when my 12-year-old daughter walked out of your cafeteria 3 weeks ago with her mother's photograph pressed against her chest, coffee grounds on her sleeves, did not one single adult in that building pick up the phone? Headmaster Whitaker didn't answer. He couldn't. Out in the hallway, Olivia Bennett heard Margaret Caldwell start to sob. Inside the room, Brianna Turner did not cry. She looked her headmaster in the eye. She looked Ashley Caldwell in the eye. She looked her mother in the eye. and for the first time in 3 weeks, she breathed. The hearing adjourned at 4:06 p.m. The complaint against Brianna Turner was withdrawn in writing at 4:22 p.m. The scholarship committee's character review was terminated, with a formal apology on school letterhead, at 5:11 p.m. Headmaster Harrison Whitaker walked Judge Turner and her daughter to the front door of Strickland Hall himself. He offered, 3 separate times, to find a way to make this right. Judge Turner nodded, polite. She didn't take him up on it, not once. She stopped on the front steps. A cold October wind moved through the quad. Headmaster, there's one thing you can do. Anything. Find out who filmed the doctored video. Find out who coached Miss Caldwell on the exact language of her complaint. Find out which adults in this building knew about what happened on October 22nd and did nothing. Then publish the findings. Not to me, to your students, and to your parents. He swallowed. Yes, Judge, yes. She placed her hand on her daughter's shoulder. We'll go home now. The drive back to the South Side was quiet for the first 15 minutes. Brianna watched the Chicago skyline come up out of the windshield of her mom's 10-year-old Lexus. At a red light at 35th Street, her mother reached across the center console and took her 12-year-old daughter's hand. You did good, baby. You did better. No. Her mom shook her head. No, baby. I made a ruling and I sat in a meeting. You lived inside that building for 3 weeks, all by yourself, with no adult on your side. That was the hard part. Don't you ever forget that was the hard part. The light turned green. The following week, events unfolded without Brianna having to lift a finger. Monday, the Wall Street Journal published the first installment of what would become a 6-part investigation into Caldwell Pharmaceutical Holdings. Tuesday, the second installment quoted an internal email from the chief medical officer to Richard Caldwell, sent in 2019. The email used the phrase, statistically catastrophic. The stock closed Tuesday down 61% from its Friday morning high. Wednesday, Richard Caldwell resigned as CEO. Thursday, the Department of Justice opened a parallel criminal investigation, securities fraud, concealment of safety data. Friday, Sterling Heights Academy announced that the Caldwell Library Wing would be renamed, pending board review. That same Friday, Ashley Caldwell was expelled. The expulsion letter cited material misrepresentations in a formal conduct complaint, submission of fraudulently edited video evidence, and a documented pattern of bias-motivated harassment directed at a fellow student. It was the first expulsion for racial harassment in Sterling Heights Academy's 81-year history. The board did not issue a press release. Word got out anyway. A local reporter from the Chicago Defender was the first to publish it. The story was picked up by 3 national outlets by the following Tuesday. Her 3 witnesses were placed on disciplinary probation. Carson Hollis, the 8th grader who'd edited the video, was expelled 2 weeks later, after a separate investigation found he'd done the same favor for Ashley on 3 earlier occasions. By Thanksgiving, the Caldwell estate in Kenilworth had been quietly listed. Asking price, $12,350,000. Brianna did not celebrate. She went to school. She kept her tutoring shift with the 3rd graders. She sat in the back corner of Pritchard Hall, room 204, and she answered Mrs. Brooks's cold calls, and she did not miss a single one. In early November, the school's scholarship office called Valerie Turner with what they framed as good news. The Board of Trustees had voted to create a new fund, the Equity in Opportunity Award. Endowed with $3 million from the Caldwell Foundation's withdrawn pledge, topped up by 5 anonymous donors, Brianna would be the fund's first named fellow. The award covered her through 12th grade, full supplies stipend, summer enrichment fellowship of her own choosing, every single year. Valerie accepted on her daughter's behalf. Brianna wrote the thank you note. She did not post it. She did not mention it. Not on social media, not at lunch. Mrs. Eleanor Brooks invited her to co-author an essay on the 14th Amendment for the school's annual civics journal, an honor usually reserved for seniors. Mrs. Brooks signed it as co-author. 3 years later, that essay was reprinted in a national civics curriculum used in more than 200 middle schools. Olivia Bennett became her closest friend. They rode into school together in Valerie's old Lexus when Valerie's docket allowed. They ate lunch together every single day. They tutored the third graders together. Valerie started packing 2 lunches most mornings. Olivia ate the second one without ever making a thing of it, the way Valerie had been feeding other people's kids her whole life. Late November, Brianna got an email from an address she didn't recognize. Subject line was one word: "I'm sorry." She opened it. It was from Ashley Caldwell. 6 paragraphs. Use the word I 41 times. Use the word you 3 times. Didn't mention Brianna's mom by name. Didn't mention the photograph. Didn't mention the letter. Didn't mention the trash can. Did mention, twice, how difficult the past month had been for Ashley. Mentioned her new boarding school in Connecticut. Mentioned her therapist. Mentioned how much she was learning about herself. Brianna read it once. Read it a second time. Moved her cursor over the reply field. Held it there. Then she selected the email and archived it. She didn't reply. Didn't forward it to her mom. Didn't screenshot it for Olivia. Didn't owe Ashley Caldwell a single syllable of her emotional labor. Not at 12. Not ever. She stood up, walked to her dresser, picked up the small wood-framed photograph of her mother in judicial robes, set it back down next to her bed, under the lamp, where it had always been. She slept well that night. 2 weeks before Christmas, a Friday, Valerie Turner left court early. Stopped at the market on 71st Street for okra, tomatoes, shrimp. Stopped at Sterling Heights Academy at dismissal. Picked up Brianna and Olivia. They drove through light snow to the little brick house where Brianna had grown up. Valerie made gumbo. They sat at the kitchen table and talked about nothing. A teacher's ridiculous tie. A silly fight between 2 8th graders. The new bakery on Stony Island. At the end of dinner, after Olivia had been driven home, Valerie Turner looked at her daughter across the table. "You okay, baby?" Brianna thought about the question for a long moment. "I'm better than okay, Mama. I know who I am." Her mom smiled. "I always did." Then she got up, cleared the plates, and put on a kettle for tea. "All right, I'm going to be real with you for a second. I know the instinct here is to turn it into a checklist, to assign roles. Brianna, the kid at the next table, the guard looking at the floor. But real rooms don't split that clean. People shift mid-second. People freeze, then move, then regret what they did or didn't do after it's already over. That cafeteria you're talking about, it's not a cast list, it's a pressure system. And yeah, some people saw everything and said nothing. Some didn't see it until it was too late. Some thought they had more time than they did. But I can't honestly tell you which one you are, like it's fixed. That's not how these moments work. The only part that repeats is the next time, the next cafeteria, the next silence, the next second when something doesn't feel right and the room is waiting to see what kind of person you're going to be this time. That's the part that actually changes patterns, not labels, not roles, not hindsight stories, just the decision when it's still happening. And if people are sending you their stories already, then yeah, that part, that deserves to be handled carefully. Here's what this story is actually about. It's not about a rich girl and her family losing everything, even though, let's be honest, that part felt good. It's not about a federal judge walking into a headmaster's office in rimless glasses, even though I hope you remember her face. It's about something quieter than all that. It's about a 12-year-old kid, standing alone in a room full of adults who had already decided who she was before she walked in. Let me give you the numbers. The U.S. Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights has documented, for more than a decade, that black students in American schools are suspended at roughly 3 times the rate of their white peers, for the exact same conduct. Black girls are suspended at more than 5 times the rate of white girls. The UCLA Civil Rights Project says these disparities don't start in middle school. They start measurably in preschool. The American Psychological Association has studied this phenomenon for years. They gave it a name: adultification bias. The research found that adults, teachers, administrators, strangers on the street, routinely perceive black girls as older, tougher, more sexually knowing, and less innocent than their white peers, starting as young as 5 years old. Read that again. Starting as young as 5. These are not stories. These are the data. What the data tells us is this: the Breonna Turners of America do not usually have a United States federal judge sitting in the hallway during their disciplinary hearing. They sit alone. Their feet don't reach the floor. Their moms are working the night shift at a nursing home, or the morning shift at a warehouse, or the 24-hour shift of raising kids by themselves, and they cannot take off a Friday afternoon to go protect a daughter who did nothing wrong. Most of these stories do not end with a Caldwell Pharmaceutical Holdings in collapse and a 3-carat diamond catching tears. Most of these stories end with a scholarship quietly canceled, a transcript quietly blemished, a smart 12-year-old kid quietly written out of a future her mom promised her at the age of 6. That is the real version. That's why this one matters. Not because the bad guys lost. The bad guys lose sometimes. They also win. Often. This one matters because underneath every version of this story that ends the right way, there are always witnesses. A kid at the next table could press record. A security guard could take one step forward. A homeroom teacher could ask the smarter question. A classmate could slip a different kind of note into a locker. An IT staffer could flag a metadata discrepancy without being asked. The reason Valerie Turner won on a Friday afternoon in October is that by the time she walked through that door, a whole bunch of people who did not wear robes, did not have $4.5 million on the line, and did not owe Breonna Turner a thing, had already borne witness. Mrs. Eleanor Brooks, who went ahead and wrote the 4-page letter anyway. Olivia Bennett, who ran the metadata at a bus stop under a raincoat. Mr. Harris in IT, who just said, yeah, the file's still on the server. And the 7th grader, whose name nobody will ever know, who sat in shame for 11 days and then finally slid a note into a locker at 7 in the morning. None of them had power. All of them had eyes. That is why she won. You don't need to be a federal judge to change the ending of a story like this. You need to be the kid in the hallway who opens the laptop. You need to be the student who presses record. You need to be the teacher who writes the letter your principal did not ask you to write. You need to be the friend who rides the bus with her. You need to be the adult who picks up the phone. You need to be the stranger who, a week late, slips the note into the locker anyway. That is the whole job. That's it. That's the entire assignment. You don't have to be brave. You don't have to be important. You don't have to know what to say. You just have to refuse, one time, in one moment, when it actually counts, to be the security guard looking at the floor. If this story moved you, do 3 things for me. 1, share it. Not because Breonna needs the views. She doesn't. She never did. Share it because somewhere on your feed right now, there is a 12-year-old sitting in a cold hallway waiting for a hearing at 2:30. And that kid needs to know the universe has a way of balancing the scales. That kid needs to know there are still people out here willing to bear witness. That kid needs to know her story is not going to end in a trash can. 2, comment below. Tell me about a time you stood up for a child, or a time you didn't, and wish you had. What did it cost you? What did it teach you? I read every single reply. Your story is somebody else's map. 3, subscribe and hit that bell. I've got more of these, because Breonna Turner is not the only kid out here digging a photograph out of a trash can. And you and me, we are going to find every last one of them. Remember this, power is not what it looks like. The loudest people in the room are almost never the most powerful. Real power shows up quietly, in a charcoal suit, rimless glasses, 10 minutes late, carrying the unedited video. Keep your head down, keep your heart up. And when it is your turn to be the witness, do not look away.